A widower was walking desperately through the park, trying in vain to calm his inconsolably crying daughter in her stroller. His frustration grew with each passing minute, until suddenly an orphaned girl approached. With a gentle gesture and a kind smile, she touched the stroller, and what happened next was unexpected. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is the Linda's Stories channel. I hope you enjoy this story. David, a widowed young man, was at home that week, an exception in his routine as a financial consultant. His little daughter Lena, just a year and a half old, was recovering from a flu that had left her weak and needing attention. After the tragic loss of his wife during Lena's childbirth, David became a devoted father, finding comfort in the needs of his daughter to cope with the deep grief that enveloped him. He went through a whirlwind of emotions, where the pain of loss mingled with the urgency of learning to be a father. Lena's presence became a source of light and purpose in his life. In the most difficult moments, he relied on the unwavering support of his own parents, who, despite being quite old, offered him comfort and wisdom. Besides familial support, David found strength in his faith to move forward and overcome all adversities. He usually worked away from home while Lena attended daycare, always managing as best as he could. However, that week was particularly challenging, as he had to balance his work-from-home duties with caring for his daughter. On yet another day of care, Lena began to cry inconsolably, a piercing cry that made David's heart tighten with worry. He tried his usual tricks to soothe her, but nothing seemed to work. Feeling the accumulated fatigue from sleepless nights and not knowing what to do, he set his laptop aside with a heavy sigh and picked Lena up in his arms. David stroked her golden curls, murmuring words of comfort in an attempt to convey calm, even though he himself was anxious. He stood up and decided to take her for a walk in the nearby park. "Everything will be all right, my little one. Daddy is here," he whispered. He decided to go to the nearest park, a place he hadn't visited for a long time since it was his late wife's favourite spot. They used to walk there every day before everything happened. Upon arriving at the park, the place was peaceful that afternoon, and David could only think about how much he wished to have his beloved by his side, and how lonely he felt, needing comfort and companionship. Being a single father, although he was doing well, wasn't easy. Lena continued to cry, and the father walked through the park trying to soothe her until a very beautiful little girl with dark hair approached the stroller and gently caressed the baby. "Hello, my name is Serena. What a beautiful baby," said the little girl with a smile. Serena made a funny face at Lena, who stopped crying immediately. In her innocence, she asked, "Poor thing, where is her mommy?" David felt a bit unsure about how to explain to the girl about Lena's mother. It turned out the little girl wasn't alone. Soon after, an elderly woman with a friendly appearance came running after her, saying, "Serena, don't run away from Grandma like that," said John with a nervous laugh. "You know I worry." David looked at the grandmother and responded with a smile to the little girl. "Her mommy is living in heaven." It was then that Serena responded with something unexpected. "Do you think she knows my parents? They live in heaven too. They must be friends." The light-hearted way Serena talked about her parents deeply touched David. The serenity in her voice, the peace with which she mentioned that her parents were in heaven, brought tears to the widower's eyes as he thought of his wife. After that, the girl invited David and her grandmother to feed some ducks at the lake, something that baby Lena loved. This simple yet tender moment renewed David's strength. He left there feeling lighter and with a warmer heart. The next day, on another late afternoon, David felt the urge to go to the park again, beginning to see that place in a different light. He then encountered Jeanne and Serena, the grandmother and the little girl from the day before. The two of them approached David in a very friendly manner and greeted him, and Lena even seemed to recognize them both. While her granddaughter was distracted by the ducklings, Jeanne apologized to David for Serena's intrusive question the day before regarding Lena's mother. She explained that Serena had lost her parents about 2 years ago, but it was still something very vivid in her granddaughter's memory. David then responded that he understood and that there was no problem. Gently he said, "I lost my wife, and it still hurts. I imagine it's not easy." He then asked what had happened. Jeanne lowered her head and said, "Oh, unfortunately it was a tragedy, a car accident." She paused, taking a deep breath. Since then, I've been afraid that something might happen to me too, and that Serena would be left alone. She continued, recounting that on the day of the accident, Serena had insisted on staying with her because she really wanted to go to the park to feed the ducklings. It was a tough day, Jean said, her voice choked with emotion. I had to be strong for my granddaughter. David listened intently to every word Jean said while watching Serena play carefree, a mix of emotions overflowing within him. It was a touching moment, and they stood there, watching the orange-tinted late afternoon together with those special girls. The soft light of the setting sun enveloped the park, bringing a sense of peace to everyone. It was getting late, and the two decided to leave at the same time, following the same path. Jeanne then asked, "Do you live near here?" David nodded affirmatively, pointing in the direction of a building where he lived. Suddenly, Jean's eyes widened and she exclaimed, "You also live there? Then we're neighbours," she said excitedly. "Wow, how come I've never seen you before?" David explained that he spent most of his time working and therefore was rarely at home, something he deeply regretted. He was now trying to better balance his routine between work and caring for his daughter. Curious, Jean asked, "So I might not have known your wife. What was her name?" He replied calmly. "Probably," he said with a smile. "She was very sociable and always mentioned her friendships with some neighbours. Her name was Aurore." Mrs. Jean's eyes welled up with tears and she said emotionally, "I can't believe it. Aurore was such a sweet person." Remembering the occasional encounters with Aurore, the lady smiled nostalgically. "Your wife was always a ray of sunshine in our days. She was very loved by the neighbours," she continued. "She had a special way with Serena, making her laugh like no one else could, and I thank every day for her life. Because of her, Serena is alive." David was puzzled and asked curiously with a tense expression. Jeanne then recounted how sometimes her granddaughter would spend the afternoon at her house, and occasionally she would take the girl to the playground in the building, where they would occasionally meet Aurore, who was already pregnant at the time. One day, Aurore met Jeanne and her granddaughter Serena in the entrance hall. Known for her sweetness and love for children, Aurore tried to please Serena by talking about the charming ducklings in the park next door, inviting them to visit. It was on that very day that Serena's parents had their accident. The granddaughter had insisted on staying with her grandmother to see the ducklings, and that decision ended up saving her life. The young man's heart ached as he listened to that story. David connected the dots and recalled how deeply saddened Aurore had been when she mentioned the accident, especially about the child having to face such a premature loss. He remembered her words, something that had gone unnoticed at the time as he was absorbed in his work. "I just wanted to pick that little girl up and hug her as tightly as possible." David was moved by what he had heard. The conversation with Jeanne had brought cherished memories of Aurore to the surface, and a new understanding of the impact his wife had left on the lives of those around her. The next morning, David woke up with a new determination. It seemed as though he had become more aware of the simple beauty of life, something that Aurore had always valued. An unexpected friendship between David and Jean began to blossom as time went by. He was charmed by Serena, the sweetness of the girl touching his heart in a special way. Lena, still so little, also seemed to have a special fondness for her. One day, David decided to invite the two of them to dinner at his house, as his parents would be present that night. The families met and quickly formed bonds of friendship, sharing pleasant moments and sincere laughter. Jean, always helpful, began to assist David with whatever was necessary, and he reciprocated with the same kindness and support. Over the years, Serena and Lena grew up as inseparable sisters, sharing not only playground games but also secrets and dreams. After a long process of healing and transformation in their relationships, David found someone special who was warmly welcomed by that family that had been formed by hearts united by pain and hope. On a sunny afternoon in that same park that had witnessed so many precious moments, David and Jeanne were sitting, watching the girls talking and laughing under the shade of the trees. David broke the silence with words loaded with meaning. "Jeanne, you know that Serena is like a daughter to me, right? Don't worry, I'll take care of her until the last days of my life, I promise you." Jean's smile conveyed a mixture of gratitude and peace, knowing that Serena had found a second loving family. As the sun gently set over the park, David felt a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. There, in that quiet moment full of promises, they recognized how precious and essential that friendship and that newly found family were in their lives. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.